What is up, AFC North football fans, and welcome into another edition of the AFC North Roundtable, powered by BetUS. Week 9 is in the books. 2 dominant victories coming out of the AFC North, and unfortunately, 1 loss. Pittsburgh Steelers were on the bye, so we have 3 games to discuss tonight on the Week 9 recap episode of the AFC North Roundtable. So without further ado, let's bring in the fellas, Zay, Mark, Sam, and Zim, who's got the Cincinnati logo back. Zim's feeling pretty damn good after dropping a 40 spot. I know Sam's got to be feeling the same. We got a ton to dive into tonight, fellas, but before we do, let's go and take a look at the updated odds to win this bad boy over on BetUS. Haven't looked in a minute, or until last week, I guess. And here's the updated lines. The Ravens are starting to separate, which I know Mark's got something to say about that. Your Steelers take a week off, Mark, and all of a sudden, these Ravens start to separate in the betting lines. Right now, the Ravens minus 190 to win it. The Steelers plus 220. The Bengals plus 900. And I'm not lying. The Cleveland Browns are plus 100,000 to win the North. Plus 100. I don't know if I've seen that before. That's certainly a digit. But right now, the Ravens are your odds-on favorite to win it. I got to tell you, I don't hate the Steelers at plus 220. That seems like value to me. If you feel the same, go ahead and take advantage of the promo code we have going on for you over at BetUS. It's YouTube 150. That'll get you a 150% sign-up bonus up to $2,000 on your first deposit and 125% bonus on your next 2 after that. Zay, I'm going to leave it up to you. Should we start with the W's tonight, or do we want to get Cleveland out of the way? I'm going to leave it up to you.
We don't get to talk over here. We can do whatever you want to do. It's done over here. I said we needed 1 more week before we could be back. We ain't back. We back in the dump. So do what you do, man.
All right, let's start there, because I for one had thought that on for a little while, not just 1 week. And unfortunately, we know with Jameis, when you get those highlight reel plays, the incredible moments from Jameis, you also get the bottom barrel end plays. That seems to be the way it goes. That's why he's the only quarterback in NFL history to post a 30 for 30. But we love Jameis for it. You just have to deal with it on one end or the other if you are a fan of the team that he's quarterbacking, and he's quarterbacking the Cleveland Browns. And this past weekend against the Chargers, you got a bit of that Jameis you were hoping you wouldn't get, like you had the week prior, where he was pretty much lights out. Jameis Winston, 1 touchdown in this game, but 3 interceptions. Browns weren't able to run the ball with any effectiveness. Justin Herbert had a good day through the air. The Chargers win this one 27-10. So the Browns get back on track 1 week with Jameis. The next week, the offense goes back to what we were kind of seeing through the first several weeks of the season. So, Mark, I'll start with you here. What were your thoughts on the Jameis experiment here? Did you think it was going to last longer than it did? And what was your takeaway from what you saw from Cleveland on Sunday?
Well, judging by what they did to the Ravens, you'd think he'd have a pretty good game in this one versus the Chargers, like getting 300 yards and whatnot and 3 TDs, and playing good football and, inspired football. But then it all just went to dirt the next time. So the Browns could have been back in some kind of conversation by, beating the Chargers. But now effectively their season's pretty much done, I guess. And like I said last week, the Chargers are a good football team. They've got good defense. So they're allowing the least amount of points on defense. I think 12 points or 14 points a game. Herbert's getting the job done as well. That was a tough game as well for the Browns. So this now, I think we'll talk about in a minute, but they got to ride this Jameis Winston thing all the way to the end. Is it just win a few games here and there and play for a draft position? I don't know. But I think, effectively their season's pretty much done in that sense. And they're just going to play spoiler for the AFC North games coming up, which we have one tomorrow as well. But I think it's funny because 1 week you got Zay with the Sunnies, the next week you don't. But that's the up and down roller coaster. I could cheer my team on the next week. We get pumped by someone else. It's just how it goes in the AFC North.
Sam, and by the way, you mentioned it, Mark. We'll talk about that on a later episode in the week, previewing Week 10, because boy, oh boy, do we have a matchup on Thursday Night Football this week between the 2 fellas in the bottom row here. It's going to be epic. But, Sam, let's talk about your Ravens real quick in regard to these Browns, because last week you're watching a Super Bowl contending team and your Baltimore Ravens fall to these Cleveland Browns the following week. Jameis is throwing 3 picks. They can't score more than 10 points against the Chargers. So was it frustrating for you to watch this loss for Cleveland, knowing the week prior it was a whole opposite team?
I was more upset about the Browns losing than the Ravens winning. I wasn't as excited about the Ravens winning because the Browns just got smacked. I mean, how does this keep happening to the Ravens? I think every season the Ravens lose a game to the Browns and they're not supposed to. Same thing with the Colts. It's very frustrating. It's very interesting. I think I talked to Browns fans because I tried to figure it out. How did the Browns lose in such a fashion and win in such a dominant fashion the week before? And they say Winston's a tale of two quarterbacks. One week he's this awesome quarterback that can do no wrong, and the other week he's throwing up crappy passes on a play-by-play basis. So it sucks for the Browns fans. I know they thought they had a chance to get something going with this win with the Ravens, and it doesn't look like their season's going anywhere. But yeah, it was just tough to watch. And as Mark mentioned, the Chargers are a good football team. So if you're not in PDQs every single possession, then you're going to falter. And the Ravens defense wasn't doing so great up to that point, so they took advantage. But when you play a team as the Chargers, who has a top 10 defense, you're going to struggle.
Zim, you were certainly as cautious as anybody when it came to what we saw from Jameis last week, and you had anticipated that this could be in the cards. We have to give it time to see what winds up coming down the pipe here. We saw what happened this past weekend. So was this what you expected? Worse, better? Your overall takeaway from the Browns Sunday?
One of my good friends is a Bucs fan, and he's a big Jameis Winston fan, and he's just like, it's like that, you know what I mean? And I think because the Browns went that whole season without having the results of that, they were like, oh yeah, this is it, because our defense is good enough. All this dude's got to do is just do enough. And I was a little cautioned too, because even when they played the Ravens, Kyle Hamilton, if he catches that pick, they might they nil it out. You know what I mean? So he can give you that. He can give you that rock. And I just thought that this is him coming back to the Jameis Winston that he's been all this time. It's like it's going to be up and down, and I don't know. It's hard to put my finger on why is it like that? Because he's such he's like one of the most likable people ever. Once he's done with football, he's gonna be like the greatest person to ever watch on as a whatever he chooses to do, whether it's color analyst or whatever, I don't know, but I think he's gonna be amazing. The Chargers defense, I thought that they've been really good all year. I think they've given up the least amount of points, or in the top 3 in that category. So I kind of anticipated look, this is a different, type of team, and a lot of the similarities with the Chargers with the AFC North. Smash Mouth, offensive line got a lot better. Defensive trenches get into a better point. A lot of what the Chargers do is a lot like the teams in the AFC North. So I thought that if you can get a team like that to match up, with them, and I talked about Lad McConkey, I think the week before, but I think it was Quentin Johnson that had a real big game this past week. So they got some guys there and they got some talent. So that's just how it goes some weeks, I guess.
To your point, the LA Chargers, they're not just one of the best defenses in the league when it comes to total scoring. They are the best in the league. They're the only team allowing less than 13 points. Mark's Steelers are close, right around 15 points per game. But I guess you saw the highlight here in contrast between the Ravens defense, which has been their Achilles heel this season. They're towards the bottom of the league in points per game allowed, to this Chargers team, which truly has one of the better defenses in football. So, Zay, was that the big factor in this one, or did you find it more to be the Browns just doing things that reverted back to what you were seeing earlier in the year?
Oh, we definitely reverted back to what we saw earlier in the year. But the second we had blown coverages, the Denzel Ward and Juan Thornhill, not once, but twice, it was curtains. I mean, you can't even be happy that Myles Garrett had a career day with 3 sacks. I mean, absolutely dominating in a fashion that we wanted to. But it was just weird because you go from seeing this offense last week to seeing exactly what we saw the first 7 weeks. I watched the highlights back. It took me 2 days to watch the highlights because it was so bad. I went to the game, and I didn't want to go to the game, but I went to the game. And I just couldn't figure it out. So then I'm watching the highlights, and I'm like, this is just as bad as Deshaun Watson. He was missing guys in his face. exactly like what Deshaun Watson was doing. Balls were just as bad as Deshaun Watson. Like, so it's a crappy situation to be in, because now you had Andrew Berry come in to the post conference today, or to the conference, talking about we're not going to rule out the possibility of bringing Deshaun Watson back. Like, that needs to be dead. It's a bad situation to be in right now. So yeah, we went right back to what we saw the first 7 weeks. The defense looks like they're slowly starting to check out, which was the one thing that I was holding on to. And if you're going to have blown coverages like this with your two starters who you're paying a lot of millions of dollars to, that tells you the direction that this team is heading to. And that, you traded Zadarius Smith along as well. So it's going to be a long 8 weeks, but I'm buckled in and I'm ready to get this over with and on to the draft.
It's spoiler season, right, fellas? As everybody's kind of said in here, the Browns could be that team. Like Sam knows just a week ago, they could be that team that just sticks in the side of these contenders currently within this division. Let's talk about the two winners of the weekend. Both of these winners putting up 41 points. Dominant offensive outings from both the Bengals and the Ravens. Let's start with the Ravens, as we have Tank coming in here saying Ravens best AFC North team. It is what it is. And I'll tell you what, they looked the part this past Sunday. Lamar Jackson, 280 yards and 3 touchdowns on only 19 attempts. Derrick Henry, another 100-yard outing with 2 touchdowns to go along with it. Zay Flowers, well over 120 yards, 2 scores of his own. Man, this offense was flying. And Denver's defense has played pretty well throughout the season here. So that might have been the most impressive aspect of it. But man, did the Ravens bounce back. Mark, talk to me. What did you see from Baltimore this past Sunday? Because that offense, once again, looks like one of those offenses nobody's going to want to see down the stretch.
It's not really what I saw. It's what I heard last week. It's we didn't play anyone yet, Sam. Hey, what about that? What about that? Hey, who's the Denver side? We didn't play anyone yet. That's all I got. I got nothing else. I don't really care about it. I can't wait for 2 more weeks when the Steelers versus the Ravens. Now look,
that's a game.
The Ravens smashed them. The secondary was absolute piss poor for the Denver Broncos. If you're a Broncos fan, I'm like, man, you have got a bad team. The Ravens was just absolutely on fire, 41 to whatever it was. They just, Lamar Jackson, dinking and diming, just everywhere. You can't stop Derrick Henry, just running him over. But I saw so much like piss poor tackling from the Broncos. It's like, we played them pretty tough in week 2, and they just lay an absolute duck egg. So I say that with a bit of, joke, or we didn't play anyone yet, but I'm going to hear that a lot because my commander's like, oh, they're a great team. When we lose to them, well, then they're just the Commanders. They're just an awful team. But the Ravens played a good game, Sam. You did really, really well. You smashed them. You're AFC top team and then whatever, but you're still behind the division at 2.
Just to give you an idea how uncharacteristic that game was for Denver, we already mentioned that the Chargers, they're the number 1 scoring defense in the league. Mark, your Steelers right behind them. Then comes Denver. Denver 3rd overall in points allowed, allowing 41. You could say what you want about going against Bo Nix, a rookie in this situation. Obviously a tough spot for him, but I don't know if anybody predicted 41 points against a defense that hasn't been allowing many teams to crack 20. Just a testament to what we've been seeing from Baltimore all year long. Zay, your thoughts just rattling off those stats there. Lamar, 19 attempts for nearly 300 yards. Derrick Henry once again dominating. Your thoughts on what you saw from Baltimore on Sunday?
I feel like Lamar's trying to win MVP as a passer this year. Like, I don't know, man. There's this looming thing that Lamar can't throw. And I swear, every time I watch him throw the ball, it seems as if he's making, like, really, really good throws. He has such, like, just – it looks like anybody can go out there and catch a pass. He has a very nice touch. But that's not the thing that I'm worried about. This is all cute. I'm referring this to the Cleveland Cavaliers right now, since we're 8-0. That's the one thing we can hang our hats on. It's like Darius Garland. I'm excited to see Darius Garland do all this stuff in the regular season. He started out hot and doing this stuff nice. But what are you going to do in the playoffs when it matters most? I'm excited to see this Lamar Jackson, the passer, because if you're getting this guy who can carve you up with 19 passes, and you can get Zay Flowers to do wide receiver 1 things, and the only wide receiver 1 position that he can do it in the Baltimore Ravens, they're going to be a scary team to beat. So I don't really care what they do anymore going forward. They're the best team in the regular season, but I need to see Lamar in the playoffs.
Zim, you got to face these Ravens tomorrow night on Thursday Night Football. You've already done it once earlier in the year. I know it could have went your way, probably should have went your way, but you look back at that game and, man, Baltimore was racking up points against your Bengals. They do it again this past weekend here. So your thoughts on what you saw, them building up that momentum Sunday, bringing it in to your Bengals tomorrow night on Thursday Night Football?
I watched some of this game, and when it was a part of the game, I'm very just confused on the Broncos game plan. The unfamiliar opponent, I talked about this on another show about the NFC being an unfamiliar opponent. Why in the hell would you have the best cornerback in the National Football League not on Zay Flowers? I could, for the life of me, they won a whole half. I don't know if anybody outside of like the Ravens saw this, but I consider Pat Surtain like the best cornerback in the whole National Football League. For him to not go a whole half on him, they just lit him up. And I posted a clip of this too. I thought Bo Nix or whatever, like he's still at that stage in his career where it's one read, he's out of there. And he missed some throws early. He missed one really late that wouldn't matter, but he missed a lot of stuff. The Ravens just dominated them. And I thought the Broncos, I know Estime ran pretty well, I think, but Javonte Williams, I have on my fantasy football team, but he's on the bench. But he didn't run well. In teams that don't run well against the Ravens, they do have problems getting their offense going unless you have like, a top tier quarterback that could just kind of outweigh that. But the Broncos don't have that. And I just thought that they were just behind the eight ball the whole entire game. And from the majority that I've seen, I never felt like the Broncos really had like a chance to, to make anything happen in there.
I reckon it was the coaching too from Sean Payton or whatever his name was. He did some really bonehead choices too, and they were playing, I think, more in like zone and just letting Lamar Jackson feed off them. Like they just played into the Ravens game completely. Like I thought the Broncos would have stepped up and did something like some kind of defensive performance, but they went down the field, and then once they got comfortable and got the lead, they just fed Derrick Henry.
Yep.
Like that's the Ravens just went to. I was really hoping that Denver could have a chance to go like 1v1 or something like that. Now Bo Nix inside the Ravens Stadium is really tough. Right. But it felt like Lamar Jackson, what he saw, the first read, boom, see you later, Zay Flowers or whoever it was, got him down the field, score TDs, next minute, up by 7-14. Like bang, bang, bang. Okay, now we're going to feed Derrick Henry. That was a frustrating game because it's like many teams in the AFC North can play like the Browns and us and Ravens. Bengals can play the Ravens. Everybody else just lays down. They're like, what do we do?
I feel like you talked about the coach. I thought Harbaugh severely outcoached them.
100%.
I thought severely. And that's not a knock to say that, like the Ravens aren't the better team, but that game shouldn't have been a 30-point whatever, and you got a top 3 defense. You know what I mean?
Payton was going for 4th and 1s and all these weird things like down by 7 points and stuff like that. And it wasn't in the I don't think it was really in the script.
That's what I came on the show last week and I said that guy, we got outcoached by the Eagles the week prior. So our game was within 7 points in the third quarter. It ends up being a 20-point because early on they go for a 4th down on our side of the field. They take advantage of that. There's a turnover. They take advantage and when you take those chances as fans, you're like, go for it. When you don't go for it, and you're playing against
it was to me, it was hard to say, but it was one like class football team just doing all the X's and O's right, doing everything correct. And the Broncos, they had to get the touchdown was that flea flicker Philly special. They pulled that out of their behind because they had nothing else to do. They couldn't get anyone else into the end zone. So the Broncos really, to me, just fell apart, and they're going to try and be a playoff team, but they're not like a physical team.
It just feels like right now the only way to beat the Ravens is through your offense. They're the only team averaging more than 30 points a game in the league currently. And when you have a rookie going into that situation, when you fall down 24-10, then it just feels like the game's over. You're not going to have the opportunity to come back regardless of how good your defense is. Like, to Zim's situation when they first played the Ravens there, you have to put up high 30s, it feels like, in order to be in these games, no matter how stout the defense is. That's why in a couple weeks, Mark, seeing your Steelers go against these Ravens is going to be interesting because really nobody has been able to shut them down. Now, Sam, I see you licking your chops there, but I can't let you off the hook because, man, you thought these Denver Broncos were coming into the bank. And
there you go.
these
There you
Ravens
go.
this past week. So what was different about the game here than you anticipated? Because not only did your Ravens win, they dominated, and you didn't have that confidence going into this game after what you saw against the Browns.
Well, as Zim said, it shouldn't have been a 31-point win. I mean, you got to put it like that. And also, you got to give the Ravens credit. I mean, I was at the game because I really wanted to see what the game plan would be to stop Bo Nix because they had so much trouble against James Winston the week before. And the Ravens just dominated. I mean, there's really nothing else you can say about it. I thought that the Broncos defense would be enough to slow down the Ravens enough where you're kind of forcing Bo Nix to do something. I saw things from Bo Nix in that Panthers game that I thought, you could probably do it to the Ravens, but it looks like the Ravens are getting things under control, starting to really get in touch with who they are as a defense and starting to put guys in the right position and not playing soft coverage as they've done in weeks past. So I was very impressed from the Ravens, and I got it from a lot of Ravens fans. So definitely come in my mentions and let me have it about the Ravens getting that job done. So I won't be betting against the Ravens anymore. I saw what I needed to see. I definitely want to see what they do against the Bengals and the Steelers moving forward to really solidify what I believe this team is about. But they're really playing amazing football. And if you saw it in person, they just couldn't be stopped. It looked like the Ravens players are playing 7-on-7 out there. So kudos to the Ravens, and go Ravens.
Ravens get it done big time this past weekend. They're going to put it on the line tomorrow night against Zim's Bengals, who also dropped a 41 spot this past weekend. Joe Burrow continues to fly off the radar, because if these Bengals were 7-2 right now, he'd probably be your MVP favorite, or at least one of them. He's one of only 3 quarterbacks currently with 20 plus touchdowns on the year. Sam, of course, Lamar is one of them. There's a reason why he's leading the MVP vote right now, and Baker Mayfield's up there as well. But this is I forgot how many times this year Joe Burrow has had a 5-touchdown performance. It's incredible. You don't see this from anybody, yet here's Joe Burrow doing it again, 250 yards, 5 touchdowns. And what the beauty of this, I guess, if you're a Bengals fan, and maybe it was just because of the inept defense of the Raiders, but finally a semblance of a run game reared its head in this game. Chase Brown had the best game of his season thus far. Mike Gesicki getting involved big time for the Bengals in this game too. So kind of doing it in a different way than you're accustomed to, while also having Joe Burrow ball out. So Zay, I'll start with you here. Big game tomorrow between these Ravens and these Bengals. Both teams offensively look incredible this past Sunday. Your takeaway from what you saw from Cincinnati on Sunday?
If Joe Burrow ever gets a stable situation where there's no distractions, look out. Dude is too good. Like, he really is him for real. I'm excited. You mentioned Chase Brown. Zim, I know you got to be kind of excited to see him now that Zach Moss is out of the way. He's going to get more carries. You had the whole Burton situation with Jamar Chase talking about how he responded back. I'm curious to see if they give him an opportunity to redeem himself. But as far as the Bengals team, man, I think as long as Joe Burrow is playing the way that he's playing, the Bengals are going to be in the conversation all season. I'm more so worried about the future. If they let him get any type of power, control, or say in what he wants to do and dictates and runs the show, oh, man, the AFC North should be scared. I'm going to be scared because I'm a big Joe Burrow fan. So hats off to the Bengals. And this is falling right into what they do every single year, is start slow and finish fast.
Tomorrow night's going to be incredible, because if you go and look at these stats, not only are these two teams always giving you a show when they battle, but these two quarterbacks tomorrow. I just mentioned that Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, 2 of the only quarterbacks in the league with 20 plus touchdowns. They also are right within a couple of points of each other in terms of overall quarterback rating on the year as well. These two are playing some of the most efficient ball in the sport right now. So Zim, you're watching this Sunday. What was your overall takeaway from what you saw, and how you think that can translate into tomorrow night's game?
Well, we don't want to hear from these two guys about.
Did I start with Zay?
Have another one. Get another mule, baby.
I don't get a chance to hear
another double espresso for me. I'm off the charts right now. I'm flying. I got to tell you right now, I think I'm not going to lie to you. I'm so jazzed.
Just drink it over there, Z-Bot.
Double espresso with gingerbread oat milk. And no, there's no Baileys in it, by the way. There's no Baileys in it. I feel like I'm good for one of these at least once a week, so I apologize. Mark, I don't know how I got down this road, but Mark, talk to me, because you're going to have to get playing these teams in a couple of weeks here. So what are your thoughts?
I almost got out of praising the Bengals. That would have been awesome.
I was going to say, I did you a favor.
Man, okay. All right, listen. Just two things. I was trying to watch all the games at once, and I put a big, what do you guys call them? Parlays? We call them multis over here in Australia because we're normal.
Like that.
I don't know what a parlay is, but we call them multis, multipliers.
I like multi better, I think, fellas. I'm tossing a couple multis this weekend.
100%. I tried watching all games at once, and the Chargers did it easy. Then I was like, the Ravens and Bengals just took them to town, and like they lost my multi. But look, I'll give you two big credits. When Joe Burrow plays like that, they're a very hard team to beat. 5 TDs and he's slinging around. He's going off his rocker. He's in control. He is the Bengals. He is like if he's out of the game, the Bengals are very tough. Hard to win. When he plays like that against a team they should beat, it's fantastic to watch. Right, as a football fan, not a Bengals fan, or I'm a Steelers fan. I hate the Bengals, but as a football fan, it's fun. And also, when the other bloke there, Trey Hendrickson, getting 4 sacks, you have to win that game. And they changed quarterbacks too. So that's their recipe, is getting up by a lot of points, and then these other teams freak out with their quarterbacks. And I don't know what the French toast that Raiders were thinking about in terms of like going in the season with like 2 quarterbacks who like are not quarterback ones, and what their plan was this year, because they went with Aiden O'Connell, the other guy, and they got like Desmond Ridder in there somewhere. It's like that. That's the recipe to lose. Like they're not going to win any football games. So in that sense,
Sanders.
The Bengals play.
Sorry.
What's up?
Shador Sanders is what their mission is.
Oh, gotcha.
Exactly. I was going to say that.
It's a fail to get that guy. Okay. But yeah, that's it. The Bengals, when they play like that against an opponent that they should beat, that put them on show, they're getting them. They're like just hanging on to a wild card. But then also the teams in front of them are Denver, who's a wild card team. So, and they played much better football than Denver. So yeah, I think that's enough praise for me.
Yeah, I think we all thought this was going to come at some point, but when you look currently at the AFC, I believe there's 6 teams right now with 2 wins. These Bengals, not only are they in the mix of things, but they're primed to be able to be fighting for one of those last spots there. You saw what Denver looked like this past weekend. The Chargers, yes, they have a great defense, but does anybody trust that offense to be able to propel them the way that you could trust this Cincinnati Bengals offense to propel Cincinnati? So, Sam, I'll swing it down to you. You got to face these Bengals tomorrow night. This offense, when it's cooking, man. Tomorrow should be a light show. What you saw on Sunday, your overall takeaway, and how you think that might factor into tomorrow night.
I know Ravens fans get on my case about glazing the Bengals, but God, Joe Burrow looks good. I mean, if it wasn't for Lamar Jackson, I'd want Joe Burrow. I just think he's a fantastic quarterback, and 5 touchdowns under the radar. I mean, what more can you say? I don't think that the Bengals are reaching for the AFC North title, but if they even get to the wild card spot, which is a possibility, as you mentioned, look out. I mean, I just really like this Bengals team. I don't think their defense is going to be good enough to carry them far, but Trey Hendrickson had, 4 sacks? So maybe I'm wrong about that too. It's just, if Joe Burrow can get this team to the playoffs, they're a dangerous team. Big, huge win. We talk about the Ravens putting up 41 points. Bengals put up 41 points. I know Ravens fans don't like me saying great things about the Bengals, but I got to give credit where credit's due. This team looked great on Sunday.
Zim, good thing you stopped me in my tracks and let everybody get their say, because they all had great things to say about these Bengals. But now it is your turn. Talk to me about what you saw Sunday. It's got to have you fired up for Thursday Night Football.
I feel really good about that game. Thursday night, we're going to get into it. But, that particular game, the number one thing that this season for the Bengals, or just Joe Burrow, has been from just a Bengals perspective, I don't think people understand the amount. I think from the outside looking in, I think you're probably like, why are they always showing him or whatever? From our side, everybody coming into the season, is he going to stay healthy? How's the wrist? You saw my frustration early on the show. First couple of weeks is like, why y'all keep on talking about him having an injury? Like, he's going to play. He's fine. Like, he's never – that was my spiel. And as he's performed at this level, you got to look at him as like comeback player of the year at the very least, because this is a dude that they told me was never going to throw the same again. Currently, Joe Burrow, and then another thing that they always say is that Joe Burrow is only who he is because of his weapons. So T. Higgins didn't play in that game, and guess what? The 5 touchdowns that he threw, none of them were to Jamar Chase. So a lot of these different things that people tell us all the time, he's kind of gradually like smashing all of those things. But to me, it's because I know it's the win, and that's all I really care about. But for his performance, just running off really quick. Jamar Chase top one in receiving yards, touchdowns number one, passing yards or whatever. Joe Burrow's third, passing touchdowns second, completion percentage top 4, yards per attempt he's in there as well, passer rating third in the NFL. All these different things is the reason why every single year we're always thinking that we always have a chance, given the success that he's had early. And I thought that this game, there was a play, he could have had 7 touchdowns. If people really watched this, he threw a pass to Hudson that fell right there at the 1 yard line. And then I think, I forgot what happened.
Call back.
Something happened and we had to back up or something, whatever. But he threw a pass and Hudson fell. Then he threw a fade to Jamar Chase. And I don't know what was going on with Jamar Chase at the end. He catches it and then the guy kind of rattles it away. He could have had 7 touchdowns in this game. And it's crazy because when he's on, it doesn't matter who's out there on the field. So a lot of our fan base has always been like, if you protect Joe Burrow, this is by far, like I said when the show first started, week 1, it's by far the best offensive line that he's had. Amarius Mims has been like our Jamar Chase on our offensive line. He hasn't allowed a sack the whole entire year. So all of these things that a lot of people tell us that we weren't going to be able to do, I am very happy to see them kind of get out of that. Some of these games that were very close at the beginning of the season, the Chiefs game and that Ravens game, and the Commanders game. These are games that just continue to plague us, though, in how I feel moving forward. I'm like, cool, great game against the Raiders, but at the same time, they dug themselves in a crazy hole that they do have a chance to get out of. They have to play the Ravens, the Broncos, all the teams, the Chargers, all these teams that are in the wild card, Steelers twice. They got to play all of these different teams, and they can get out of it. And I think Bengals perspective, I think because we didn't think that we'd be 4-5, I'm looking at them like, bro, like, how are we still here? And I'm trying to get out of that and get back into, like, I think that they're contenders, but it's hard for me to say that because every time they do something really, really good, it's like they come back the next week or whatever. He's won 4 out of his last 6 games, so that's good, but it's still a little bit more. I'm kind of like how Sam was, like, they got to kind of show me a little bit more before I buy into it. If the Bengals were to win this game on Thursday night, I'm all in. Like, I'll be like, I think that they could beat anybody. The Ravens are literally the only team that I'm looking at right now that I feel like if they were to play on Sunday, Thursday, whatever, that I feel like I don't know if they can stop them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's the only team, and I hate that it's got to be them tomorrow. I feel like the rhythm that Burrow's in right now, I hope it's enough to keep it going, but he's got to score a lot of points.
Hey Zim, is your fan base, are they thinking playoffs? Are they thinking that, because I look at the schedule, you guys, we get this phrase called "we haven't played anyone yet," that was coined by Sam here. When you look at it, the Bengals really haven't played anyone yet. Sorry, Sam. Like in reality, right? The Panthers, they won. They haven't beaten anyone yet. The Panthers, they beat the Raiders, and who are the 2 other teams I'm looking up in the schedule? Brown, yeah. So, like, are they thinking playoffs, or because you guys win one, you get excited, then you lose one again? So, what are the fan base thinking?
It's split right in the half because if you watch the Chiefs game, I mean, bro, they had the lead with they were up like 7, like on the Chiefs. Like they were up like 17 on them. The Ravens game, we were up like 14. Like, it's not like, yes, we lost those games, but it ain't like you looked at them and said, man, there's no way that they can hang with those teams. So I feel like it's split right down the middle. Half is like the front office sucks. The other half is like, I think we can make a run because we got
the AFC is like 2 games away from a wild card. Like, the AFC this year is very weak, I think, in terms of the NFC. Like, there's the teams like in Z-Bot's division, none of them are going to make the playoffs. So, you started off slow, and you're really only 2 games away from a wild card spot.
It's a tough conversation because I've watched them squander games that they should have won that were really close, and it's an unforgiving, like, nobody can go back and go get those games back. And so it's like the margin for error is so small. And that's the issue. It's like they have to win, 7 out of 9? You know what I mean? Like, what is it, 9 games left? Or is it?
Yes. But the other games like the Denver and the Colts aren't going anywhere with Flacco, in my opinion, with that Flacco or Richardson anyway. So, and they're 4-4. Denver just lost a game they should have at least a chance to win. Maybe they can bounce back. Chiefs going to run away with it. I just feel like that there's three spots, or there's 2 spots now, because I think Steelers and Ravens, to me, are fighting out for the AFC North.
Right.
Unless we fail, then you guys come into it. But there's a lot of playoff chances, really.
Put it into perspective here. Sam, take
like
a look. This is the current odds to make the playoffs right now for your Bengals on BetUS. It's even odds, yes or no. Right now on BetUS, to make the playoffs, -115, to not, -115. I mean, I feel like from where they started, even odds at this point going into week 10, that seems pretty damn good to me if I'm you.
Yeah. The team is, when they're playing cohesively, like they got a lot of guys on defense back. They've made some different adjustments and different things that I've seen that made me. I feel like it started, honestly, when we played the Ravens. We didn't have Mike Hilton and we didn't have Sheldon Rankins. But in the 4 quarters, Derrick Henry only had 40 yards. And I felt like they built off of that, and they've been doing a lot better. If the defense could put it all together every single week to just not let somebody do what the Eagles did, I think I like their chances a lot. But it's like the season is, I think Chef Zay said this one, you would have never thought the season, us at 4-5, coming into the season?
Jim, I got a question for you.
I don't know.
with T. Higgins, do you think this whole thing is obviously it's a hamstring. We know hamstrings linger. But do you think this is more so protecting his health because he didn't get the contract he wanted? Because I think they're just trying to get to the playoffs. You guys, you don't need to find some rhythm with Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase. Is this does it feel like it's kind of just let's get to the playoffs and then we can lock in together?
That would be the stupidest thing ever, because because they don't have any leeway. If they lose Thursday, you're probably not. Bro, you had to win all the games. You could only lose one more game after that.
How much money is T making this year?
$22 million or something like that.
So it can't be the money then. That's what it don't make sense then. So maybe it is. Do you think is the injury as bad as what it is then? Essentially.
You can only go by what the player is telling you. Bro's got a quad. He was on a bike. You know what I mean? He's there. The teammates. Everybody's there. They're all hanging out. They got footage of them doing what they do. But you can only go by what he's telling you. And a quad and a hamstring for a wide receiver,
right?
You got to let it sit for 2-3 weeks every single time. It doesn't matter who you are. So I don't think he's making it up. No, I don't.
Zim, talk to me real quick, because in this game, something had to give. The Bengals have the 27th overall rush offense. We know that's been a problem for them all year, not being able to run it. The Raiders, they're not the best run defense. They're not the worst. They're literally dead middle of the pack at 17. I feel like this was one of the better rushing performances the Bengals have had on the year. There was some stability to it. So you see this performance, once again, it wasn't the most stout defensive performance by the Raiders, and coming into it, they don't have the best overall rushing defense. But to see Cincinnati put something together against the middle of the pack rush defense, is that something to build on here, or do you think it was a one-off? What did you see from Chase Brown in the run game this past weekend?
That's a great question. I feel like he's super talented. Super talented. He reminds me a lot of with Miami, with Mossert and A-Chain and stuff, the speed. When he ran a Texas route and just blows by everybody and caught the ball in the back of the end zone. And you see early in Monster's career, or Moser, however you say it, he would have this thing where he would just run straight into it because he was so fast. He's starting to put it together, slow it down. Okay, speed it up. You know what I mean? So I just think that he's finally starting to get into his own. He's not a bell cow running back to me, though. I feel like he had 32 touches this past week. So they bring in Khalil Herbert. We put the trade in. I think you need somebody to spell him for 5 or 6 carries. But he is probably one of the fastest players I've ever seen. He's very fast. When we drafted him, I knew he was fast, but he's really fast. But the run game hasn't been blocking at the second level, so you ain't really had a chance to get a chance to see it. And then you got a coach that's a former quarterback that doesn't believe in running, So you got these two things, and the craziest thing about this, and I just have to say this because I know Bengals fans gonna hate me. The Bengals could easily, for the same exact money, Zach Moss is now on IR with a neck injury. For the same exact money, do y'all know that we could have Joe Mixon and Chase Brown? And they just traded Joe Mixon for, and look at him being like one of the number one running backs in the Bengals could have had Mixon and Chase Brown for nothing.
Man, that's interesting. But Chase Brown, if he can keep it going the way he did this past week, like you said, I think that there's something there. It doesn't feel like a bell cow type back, but when you have Joe Burrow, you might not necessarily need that. So we'll see if they can build on that run game that they had this past Sunday. We're a little bit ahead of schedule here. So I figured before we wrapped up, we're at the halfway point of the year or just over the halfway point of the year. So figured we'd go around the room and get everyone's hot take for the second half of the season here. What's something that you've seen go on throughout the year here that you think translates into how it goes down towards the end of the year here? Zay, I'll start with you. What's something that might not be the most popular take, but you could see happening as the year rolls on?
Throughout the NFL, or are we going on our respective
NFL
teams?
wide. NFL wide.
I can see them. You're gonna like this one. I can see you guys making the AFC Championship. I just think if you guys get in, Joe Burrow looked like it reminds me of when I saw Josh Allen versus the Chiefs, and then he loses by 13 seconds. Joe Burrow looked like LeBron Game 6 versus Boston. He just looks like he's in a completely different locked-in mode. And I think if the Bengals find a way to sneak into the playoffs, you don't want to face them. So I'll go with the Bengals making the AFC Championship.
Burrow does look locked in, by the way. When they're talking to him at the podium, he just seems like he's dialed in, not too high, not too low. He knows the mission.
Did you see him on the sideline at the game?
There was a whole thing there, right? With
his fifth touchdown, he just like, I was like, what the hell is wrong with him? Like everybody was like,
he knows the deal. He knows his work's cut out for him. You got to love that. I love that demeanor in a quarterback. It's underrated. You don't want someone getting too high or too low. I think it's one of the more underrated qualities a quarterback can have. Burrow seems locked in. Mark, besides your Steelers winning it all, because I don't think that's a hot take in your opinion, what's a hot take that you could see going down league-wide as the season comes into the second half here?
You know, I still talk about my Steelers in some components. All right. Well, I think the hot take is that Mike Tomlin will win Coach of the Year. And I know that you guys are all good with it, but like 25% of Steelers fans hate it because they want to see him fail and bag him out and say that they want to fire Coach Tomlin. But I think that Coach Tomlin, they're talking about this gauntlet that we have coming up, right? This really scary gauntlet that the fact that we don't play these teams every freaking year, and some Steelers fans are so weak as piss, and they're like, oh, we got to play this team. We got to play the Ravens. They sound like old grandmothers. Sorry, the grandmothers out there from Steeler Nation. You're awesome too, right? Everyone's got love. But why? But like the gauntlet I keep hearing about is absolutely pissing me off. It's worse than this receiver 2 thing, and thank goodness for the draft, and we got Mike Williams, because that ended that speculation with the receiver 2, which was nuts, right? The gauntlet we face, we verse you guys every year, and we have some good records against you. Mike Tomlin, if they're promoting the gauntlet to be the hardest thing that the Steelers have ever faced in their life, then Mike Tomlin deserves some credit when he goes through it, and will win 4 games in a row in the division. Book it.
That is a hot take. Mike Tomlin, despite never having a losing record, has never won Coach of the Year. And if they're able to keep up what they're doing right now,
what happened then? The Lions should have got that. The Browns guys got it.
The quarterback situation, being able to win with both. I like that, Mark. Even though you kept it in-house, I do like that take because that would be hot. Mike Tomlin never won it. Sam, how about you? What's something that comes to mind in terms of, wow, I could see that happen. It would be nuts, but I could see it.
Chiefs one and done in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to be good enough.
Yeah, look, we will do that.
Please.
Sam, you're my favorite. My favorite, Sam. Everything's gone now, mate. You're my favorite. It's great.
I don't trust the Chiefs. I think it's going to be Ravens, Bills, AFC Championship. I don't see the Chiefs being that team that makes it all the way. I think
wait, you don't trust the Chiefs? They have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. That's the 2 most important things you need in the playoffs, bro. You trust the Ravens more than the so the Ravens. Lamar showed you he can throw interceptions when it matters most. That's what they showed you. What are we
regular
talking
season
about,
so
Sam?
far.
Come
First
on,
9
bro.
games,
You
I
can't
don't
say
trust
you
the
can't trust a
Chiefs.
team who's won back to back, who started. That's crazy. That's crazy, Sam.
I respect the Chiefs. I don't trust them this season.
Can I say that whatever I was gonna come up with, Sam, you're cooking.
You're
cooking.
I know Chef Zay's in the house, but Sam, you're the one with the pot right now.
Z-Bot, let me ask you this: you're a Bills fan? Who would you rather play, the Ravens or the Chiefs?
Based on the Bills' current makeup right now, I would absolutely, and I know this is crazy, I would absolutely rather play the Chiefs. The Bills are like your Bengals. No one plays the Chiefs harder in the league than the Bills and the Bengals. The Ravens
I'd rather play the Chiefs.
Yes, absolutely. They would run all over Buffalo. All over. They'd run all over them right now. The Bills are not meant to stop what the Ravens have going on right now.
A trend in the NFL is like the top 4 scoring teams generally end up being in the final 4, like AFC Championship, NFC, like so the highest scoring teams like year after year.
And right now,
D-Hop for that one game, I'm with Sam. I don't know if I had anything better than that, Sam, but I will tell you this. I got one. I think Joe Burrow wins comeback player of the year. I think Lamar wins another MVP. But my hot take, I guess, is I think coach of the year will be dude from Commanders. What's his name?
Abenemy?
No.
Dan Quinn.
Dan Quinn.
Yeah.
Well, but defensive player of the year for the first time ever, I think is Trey Hendrickson, your national football leader in sacks currently right
now. I'd like that. Couple points on both of your guys' points. So Sam had said Bills, Ravens. Zim, you had said it's usually the top scoring teams. Right now, the 2 top scoring teams in the AFC, the Ravens and the Bills. The 2 top scoring teams in the NFC would be your 2 top seeds in the NFC if the season ended today, the Detroit Lions and the Washington Commanders. But to denounce Sam's point, the Chiefs have won 14 consecutive games and have not lost since Christmas of last year. So that would be the hottest of takes. And as it seems right now, Sam, the one and done.
Z, one question for you.
In the division.
What out of those teams, are there any in the top 10 in defense? Because I know there's a crazy stat when it talks about teams that win the Super Bowl. They have to be like one of the top offenses and they have to be top 10 in defenses. And I think that goes back in like the past 7 or 8 years or something like that.
Right now, the Detroit Lions have the 6th best scoring defense. The Bills have the 8th best scoring defense. So both those teams would qualify under that point you're making. I believe that the Eagles as well are top 10 in both. So you got a couple of teams that are right within the mix there.
And you know what's funny? All of them are in the color logo of the Super Bowl this year, aren't they? Every team you just named.
It's red. It's red and what is it? Red and what? Green this year?
Orange and green and all types of different.
Yeah, it's like that New Orleans.
Yeah, it's got the NOLA vibe.
I think we've already just cooked up who's going to make it to the Final Four. We know it.
Didn't Joe play college there in that state or whatever?
Absolutely.
Yeah, LSU.
If he makes it from there and the refs start throwing flags to get them to be the Super Bowl, then I'll quit forever. If the Bengals get there from this point, I'll be like,
the kryptonite. Chiefs don't want to see us in the playoffs.
That clip gonna hit like crack when they make it to the AFC Championship. I'm gonna hate it so much, but it's gonna hit like crack for you, Zim.
To Sam's point too, the one and done that would be if, and I just don't see anybody catching the Chiefs for the 1 seed right now. It's borderline impossible. They have made the AFC Championship every single season that Patrick Mahomes has been the starting quarterback. So that would be, not only is it a hot take, Sam, that would be quite an historic outcome, seeing that nothing leading up to that has happened in order for it to happen. But oh my God, I couldn't be happier than to see that going down.
It's not a hot take if it ain't got no sizzle on it. You know what I mean? Like
it's got steam coming off of it.
That's a steamy one. Like I'm not mad at it.
If they lose the first week, who's going to knock them out?
Well, it would be the winner of the lowest seed. So
Burrow. It would be Burrow.
Bengals.
So it would lead right up to so both our hot takes gonna mesh, Sam. What's up?
Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, it's perfect.
I'm kind of loving it.
If you tell me I get a chance to play them in the playoffs and get them back for that 4th and 16 bullshit, sign me up.
God, everybody just wants another. It's crazy. Tank's saying it's hard to lose when the refs are on the payroll, as he's alluding to the Chiefs. But
that false start.
Oh, but he's been doing it his whole career. They just don't call it. I don't know what it is. But you know what? To that point on the Monday night game, Todd Bowles, go for 2. What are we doing? What are we doing? I just don't understand.
My ball would have went for it.
You would have. I think most teams would have. Tim,
you would have went for two. You would have went for two, Z-Bot, for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
You got to, because if you're going to give it up.
Pussy-ass coach wouldn't have gone for it, too. He would have kicked the extra point.
Think about the law of averages there. It doesn't play in your favor.
I needed that 2 points so
anyway.
bad. I mean, I needed that overtime game so bad. I needed one catch from D-Hop to cash out a plus 1,300 parlay, and sure enough, cha-ching, baby, on a little time. I was like, oh my God, thank you, Lord.
That's the scary thing, though. Now you're starting to see D-Hop pop off, 2 touchdowns the other night. Travis Kelce, a career high in receptions. I don't know, man. I just can't stand him. I hope somebody somewhere, whether it's my Bills or one of you, I don't care who it is, just somebody, please. Tank's coming in. Back to the point we were talking about earlier with Zay Flowers and Zim kind of being confused on why Pat Surtain wasn't covering him. Tank's saying Surtain would have gotten cooked like dinner on Zay Flowers. Sheriff Flowers came to town and had bounties on defenders' ankles he came to collect. To that point, Sam, the complaint around Lamar has always been, despite the fact they've allotted a lot of draft capital to wide receivers, the complaint has always been he hasn't had that top guy. Zay Flowers has really been taking that next step this season. Are you starting to see him evolve into the guy you were hoping he was going to be?
Oh, yeah. I love Zay Flowers. I think that notion has to be killed. I think they got Deontay Johnson, they got Zay Flowers, Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews, Derrick Henry. So the notion that the Ravens don't have talent around Lamar Jackson, you can put that to bed. But Zay Flowers definitely forming into that top 10 receiver. Definitely want to see him put it together in the playoffs. But yeah, I have nothing but great things to say about Zay. And to his point, I think Patrick Surtain wouldn't have had much success against Zay Flowers. He would have had more success. I think they would have done a better job of containing him. But Zay Flowers is, boy, he's cooking. So I don't know.
And I'm gonna tell you another thing too. The art, I'm kind of going against my MVP. Somebody said this comment to me the other day. If you have 2 MVPs on one team, is it really an MVP?
That's how I always saw it. I always felt that the MVP should be the most valuable. If I look at it right now, the Bills lose Josh Allen, they might win 2 games, 3 games the rest of the year. The Ravens lose Lamar. I think Derrick Henry can win you. He literally propelled the Titans to a 1 seed 1 year, Derrick Henry. I think you can win games with Derrick Henry. But on the same point, that defense, I don't know if it's good enough to not have Lamar, because then you're not scoring 31 points a game. So it's tough.
Why I believe that to an extent, I think if you take Lamar off the team, they just don't become as dangerous, though. Can they win? Yeah, but no one's going to look at them and be like, oh, man, we got to go up against the Ravens. So I think you're right, though. Josh Allen, if you take him off the team, they win 2 games, maybe 3. But I don't know. Lamar's pretty valuable to the Ravens, man. They built that whole thing around him. Everybody is either shifty or dynamic, which is I'm talking about Derrick Henry. He's dynamic, but their whole team is shifty. How do you beat that?
I think the argument, like kind of going off of Z-Bot's point, though, if you take Lamar off, sure, you're not in Super Bowl contention, but I think you could still get into the playoffs. If you take,
but that's not the standard, though.
I'm just saying, if you take Joe Burrow, Josh Allen off, you're not making the playoffs.
I mean, I guess we said the same thing about Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers. They've made the playoffs every year. So do we know that, hypothetically speaking, when you're talking about the Ravens?
Well, the Ravens have made the playoffs without Lamar.
We have.
I mean, they were a Huntley. I mean, it's Zim. They were a Huntley goal line sneak away from winning a playoff game.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. But the thing is Lamar's MVP last year, no one separated themselves. I hated the idea of thinking that he was unanimous last year. Stephen A. Smith destroying everybody who thought otherwise. This year, you look at the numbers, you can't dispute Lamar Jackson being the MVP. Absolutely. I think that's the nice thing here. I think you actually have some serious deserving candidates this year. Saquon Barkley, go ahead and throw him in the mix too. I mean, what I saw on Sunday, unbelievable. This guy. I don't think the Eagles are what they are without Saquon this year.
Can I say right now, super biased take. Tomorrow night, though, the 2 best quarterbacks throughout the whole entire season are playing. Like
Instant classic.
Instant classic.
Don't you say it, because I think it might be. I think it could be.
This got to be an instant classic,
Zim,
right?
To your point, though, Zim, to your point, and we know Joe Burrow can't win it because they're not going to be a top 2 seed. Unfortunately, the politics that have been involved with this, it sucks. But we remember last year, and how quickly people forget. going into Christmas night, the MVP came down to Lamar Jackson and Brock Purdy. And Brock Purdy crapped himself. Lamar Jackson balled. Then he became the undisputed MVP. If Lamar gets it done tomorrow night in that type of environment, right, where it's a massive game for both teams and he balls out, it could really separate him. It certainly could.
Prime time. Yeah.
Yeah, these primetime games, they have so much weight when it comes to, the MVP. Well, we read that one.
Mark, you didn't have a hot take of saying that you were going to sweep the Ravens? I thought that was going to be your hot take.
I think we can go 4-2 or 5-1 the division. I think this year's Ravens is a tougher team than previous years, and depending if Lamar Jackson should be playing. So I'm not going to say the hottest take of the sweat. It would be fantastic if we do, but that's why I went with the Mike Tomlin route. And this gauntlet is so scary. Everyone's really scared.
I hope y'all lose. If you lose 3 of those games, Mark, you gotta hide. You have Bubba filling in, aren't you, Mark?
We ain't losing. You don't go 6-2, then prepare yourself to get to
say you're not
and go make all the trades and get the guys from the Green Bay and Mike Williams to go and lose now. The Steelers want a chance to go and win. Take Commanders first, then go on this scary gauntlet that we have never played these teams before, and then take the business to the playoffs. Like we're not. We shouldn't be worried about these teams. The Cameron Hayward, TJ Watt, Minka aren't worried about playing AFC North football. They're excited to play.
Zay, you got to be more strategic than this. If Mark wins, we don't care. He's already going to talk about the championships that he had before. We don't care.
I haven't mentioned that since fucking off-season.
We don't need.
I haven't said it once.
You guys over here telling us about.
Wait, I haven't said it. I've only pointed up.
We don't need that. You got to get strategic. The Steelers are just going to say the same thing that they've been saying. We don't care about.
I've got the same number of wins this year as my Super Bowls. I've never said that.
What a playoff game.
I'll tell you what, Mark's been letting it fly in terms of talking that talk since about the first week of August, and he's yet to miss. So I wouldn't back down if I were you, Mark. I wouldn't back down. I'd keep letting it fly.
Everyone was so vocal like I said in the preseason. They're so vocal. Everyone's like, "Oh, we're going to win the whole thing," and the Steelers are going to go fourth, and yet we're here. We are sitting first. So, I don't know how that works, but maybe it's because I'm upside down in Australia. Maybe you guys thought you guys were in Australia for a moment. You guys are
We're in a different universe. Doctor Strange altered a timeline or something.
I know it.
We were projected to come last, and here we are sitting first. And everybody wants us to crash, and it's not going to happen. Mike Tomlin will not get this team ready to crash and go 6-9 or something. Not
really?
going to happen.
Really? Because you guys crashed before at 11-0.
Nah,
you crashed hard.
But we still made the playoffs, so they're not going to crash and miss the playoffs.
You did? What happened in that playoff game?
Ooh.
What happened?
The one.
Oh,
The one thing you've got. The one thing. You know what the problem was with that was the bloody pounce. He threw the ball
you
like it
left
was a
the door
shot
on
put.
Open. Hey, I'm just walking through. You left it open.
Anyone could have won that day.
I'm jealous that Mark's algorithm doesn't have all the damn politics on his timeline. That's what I'm more like.
Yeah, you got to, or do you? How is it over there? Like when you go on Twitter in Australia, is it all American politics or no?
I'll just say like that a lot of Australians have a lot of opinions and they don't know what they're talking about. I don't know what I'm looking at either, but they still think it's left or right. And it's like, I'm like, that's not really in our realm to talk about unless you're sitting down 4 or 5 hours a day and, looking into it. Like they see who won, they go, oh, and I'm like, is there anything to back that?
It's funny. Every time you go to a different country, I don't know any of these other world leaders. I probably should, but you go to a different country and it's the first thing they ask you. Is they ask you about American politics. And it always has interested me because these other countries, these other places, they're locked in on it. And you don't think about it a lot, but it is.
In Australia, there was a bloke here that actually walked into the ocean and then they never saw him again. One of our prime ministers, like back in the 70s.
He just
walked in, I can't remember his name, but he just walked into the ocean for a swim and he went missing for like 10 minutes and he just went missing there forever.
I got to start tapping into Australian politics. That sounds interesting. Hey, a line stepper's coming in, by the way. He's making a great point. He's saying that there's a very likely scenario where Derrick Henry is Offensive Player of the Year, and I think that's pretty much locked up at this point. I think that's a guarantee. And then Lamar could be the MVP back-to-back with his third MVP in his career. He's saying they're only mentioning Henry now, but when Keaton starts working him in, I'm wondering this, though, Sam, as we round up the episode here. I'm wondering, how the pressure's already been high on Lamar. how much more does it continue to grow if he goes into the postseason with a third MVP and the offensive player of the year? I mean, I would be nervous as all hell. It doesn't get better than that.
Yeah, the pressure is mounting on him. I think you've noticed it this season. He's played a little different. His mannerisms are a little different. He's all about the postseason. He is locked in the focus. If he loses again, it will be devastating for the fan base and Lamar. That's crazy. You're right. That pressure is mounting. He needs to win. I mean, he's in win now mode for sure.
We shall see. This is getting interesting. In this game tomorrow night, boy, oh boy, I cannot wait. And I cannot wait to preview it. We're going to get into that later in the week with our preview episode, Zim.
I can take some pressure off. We could get Jamar Chase another 200-yard game and get him introduced into the offensive player of the year, candidacy if you want. He's leading in yards, touchdowns. We could get Derrick Henry out the way now.
Yeah, maybe James Cook Sunday has a 3-touchdown performance, leading all running backs in touchdowns. Maybe we get him in the mix, and I don't know.
Saquon might sneak in and grab
it. That's a hell of a point. That's a hell of a point.
He looks so good, bro.
That's such a great point. I feel like Saquon's kind of getting forgotten about a bit because the Eagles, when they're winning, but man, like they're up 22-0 the other day to the Jags, and you blink and it's like, wait a minute, this is coming down to the final drive here for Jacksonville. I feel like that's why they kind of get forgotten about a bit. And Derrick Henry has been just so dominant when you have Lamar Jackson as well. But Zay, that's such a great point. My man the other day, not only did he hit the circle button on him, but he did a backwards hurdle. I've never seen anything like it in my life. That was offensive player of the year type stuff for sure. Like I was mentioning, though, we have an unreal game within this division in Thursday night football. Finally, a game. We got a couple good ones lately, but Al Michaels, no falling asleep in this one. I know it's been tough for Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit up in that booth with these games. Tomorrow night, that shouldn't be the case. And we're going to be previewing it in our Week 10 preview episode. You're going to want to make sure to catch that. So on your way out the door, like button if you could, subscribe button. That way you're notified of all upcoming episodes, including that Week 10 preview. Also, when you're on your way out the door, all of the Week 10 lines are currently up on BetUS. Go take advantage of them with the promo code we have going for you right now. It is YouTube150 on BetUS. That'll get you a 150% sign-up bonus, up to $2,000 on your first deposit, and 125% bonus on your next two after that. For Zay, Mark, Sam, and Zim, I'm your host, Z-Bot. Thanks so much for tuning in to the AFC North Roundtable, and we will see you on the next one.